Hello, how are you? I hope you're well. This is episode 30 of Love is a Battlefield, the Domestic Violence Podcast. Hi, my name is Tilly Moore, and how have you been? Are you keeping safe? I hope so. If you have anything to share, don't forget to email me, liabfpodcast@gmail.com. You can find that address and more information in the show notes that should be somewhere on wherever you're listening to this. When you click on the episode, and it's like details in there. So, how have you been? Episode 30, 30, 30. Bit of a landmark, bit of a milestone. Not really in the scheme of things. It's not like 100, but we are chipping away at many, many, many DV topics. And today is yet another one called hoovering. Now, you've probably heard of it, but years ago, I'm telling you, no one had heard of hoovering or knew what it was. What is hoovering? So, hoovering is a DV term and it stems from the brand of vacuum called Hoover that was very, very popular in Western countries. I think we had a Hoover when I was young. Now they have all sorts of brands, and we've got Dyson. So it should be called, because Dyson was like the modern new age vacuum, should be called Dysoning. But we don't want to put such a negative thing that these abusers do onto like modern technology. Let's give them an old Hoover word. So in a nutshell, hoovering is when the narcissist person / abuser tries to get you back. Now, this can be as you're about to leave, they do these techniques, when you have just left, or this can even be way down the track if you were able to get away from them, move on with your life, randomly out of the blue. Hey, how you going? Down the track. Now, if it is the down the track case, usually that means they're like, because they always have a narcissistic supply. So usually if they've randomly contacted you, that means they're losing narcissistic supply. So something's gone on with one of their many women. They always have a few women around them at one time. Even if they're in a committed relationship, there's always like backups around that they're having little flirty conversations with. So if they're not getting enough attention out of them, they might get in their back pocket. Oh yeah, she's quite vulnerable. I think I might be able to get her back. Oh, let's have a little bit of a play here and see if we can manipulate her back just for a bit of shits and giggles. Literally, like even in the hardest cases where you were like, you are a narcissist, buddy. Like, you are not okay. I should have called the police. Like, get out of my life. They will be cocky and just think, for shits and giggles, let's just see if I can try and get her back. Because what a goal to try and get someone who is ungettable, who knows and calls you out on all your behaviors. Imagine the feeling, that ego boost, that feeling that they would get if they were managing to succeed in that and actually get someone like that back. That's why they love a challenge. And they'll also at the same time have like other things going on. They're always got their finger in a lot of pies, if you know what I mean. So, bit of an analogy, probably inappropriate if you really think about it, which I didn't before I said it. Anyway, moving right along. So, hoovering, when it's way down the track, is usually related to them needing narcissistic supply. And I'm actually thinking, when I talked about narcissist, I don't even know if I talked about narcissistic supply. I might have to do an episode on that. Okay, but basically, in a nutshell, narcissistic suppliers, they always need attention. They always need their ego filled. They always need someone filling that void because, as we know, narcissism is just this deep void of insecurity that just germinates into this evil little rat. No, don't offend rats. Rats are cute and fuzzy, but their long tails can be freaky. So anyway, I would like to refer to a website because I do like to do that, as you know. So medicinenet.com, not medicine.net.com, it's medicinenet.com. They have an article and it is titled, let me just scroll up here. I'm just going to do it live. Like, yeah, great editing that. Well, you get what you pay for. What does being hoovered mean? And then it goes on and on and on. But what I want to do is get into the crux of it when they talk about how they do it. So here are some signs of being hoovered. Now, this episode actually should be sponsored. Like if I was getting paid to do the podcast, I've been whinging, as you've heard. I don't get paid at all. I make no money. It's all voluntary and it's all for you. And it is very important to do this for you guys. And for anyone who is out there desperate for info, it's for you and it's all voluntary. But if I was a podcaster, Like one I listen to, she gets frequent urinary tract infections, so she has urinary tract infection products that she advertises on her page. And now with mine, I'm like, this episode, it could be sponsored by Hoover or Dyson or any kind of vacuum. Slay. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So let's move along. Now, what I wanted to do is get into the signs of being hoovered. So hoovered is you've got an abuser or a narcissist, you've left the relationship, either you're in the process of leaving, you've not long left, or you left a long time ago. They've either trying to get you back, trying to stop you leaving, trying to get you back, or reappeared out of nowhere. Hey, how are you going? So they're trying to suck you back in, hence hoovering, suction, vacuum. But what are the actual methods that they use? And I'm telling you, these abusers are textbook. They're going to list them here, and they do use these. It is so creepy when you're in a relationship with these and you actually are educated on this and you can see them doing textbook things, and you're just like, it's so fascinating that their brains all come up with the ways of doing things that are the exact same as each other. It's so weird. Anyway, reestablishing communication. They'll contact you out of the blue, pretending nothing has happened. Oh, they love to pretend nothing has happened because, it's all in the past. What happened 5 seconds ago? It's in the past. It's a classic sign of hoovering. If your ex wants you back, they ought to straight away say so, but they don't. Twisting the conversation and asking, for instance, if you still have something that once belonged to them. Oh, mine intentionally left things at my house to have an excuse to come back. And then when that excuse didn't work, because I knew he intentionally planted it there so that he could come back, he's like, well, the police are coming because you have stolen that and you are like, refusing to give back. And I'm like, I've left it out the front for you. I've arranged a time. The time suited you. You wouldn't come. You said you were coming. And he would do this thing of, and I'd be like, I will leave anything you want out the front at any time. And he would refuse that. Or once he did do that, and I left the item out the front, and he grabbed it, but then he started doing all those things to get in the house, like turning off my electricity, yelling out to the neighbors that I was abusing him, about my vagina, all private secret things, anything to get me to open that door and jump the fence, go around the backyard, try and get in access there, starting scratching my car, damaging my vehicle, trying anything and everything he could do to get access. And I would say, and I made a huge point one day of saying, you are not going to enter the premises. We are not talking. I will leave it at the door. I'll only put it out when you say that you're on your way. We are not having conversation. You are not coming in. Yeah, I understand. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. Do you understand you're not coming in? Yes. Do you understand we're not talking and it'll be at the door? You are to grab it and leave. Yes, I understand. I understand. Gets there, starts doing all that, starts acting like, but you invited me over. Why are you doing this? Why would you invite someone over? Yelling out to the neighbors to use humiliation, isolation. Why are you doing this? Why would you invite someone over and then not even open the door? You're so rude. There's something wrong with you. You need to go to hospital. You're not well. Yeah. So can you imagine your neighbors hearing that all the time and what they would think of you? Ugh, these people are so creepy. So anyway, if they do, so that's all my little story about. If you have something that once belonged to them, they'll say, hey, I need that. And I can guarantee you they left that there intentionally so that that's their little ticket to one day coming back. And it won't be something of value. It never is. Oh, or they might say they dreamt about you. That's also a manipulation tactic. Declaration of love is next. If they begin to proclaim their love for you after the breakup, consider it to be a twisted strategy of trying to reel you in and remind you of good old time. This should be especially bizarre if in the past they have struggled to admit their feelings, like the kind of guys who can't say I love you, but then when you're leaving them, they're like, I love you. It's a manipulation technique. It's not that they secretly loved you but just couldn't tell you. The repentance. They are suddenly repentant. That means to say, sorry, I've done this wrong thing. I admit my faults. They are suddenly repentant and are being overly apologetic for their past mistakes. As such, they are trying to convince you they have changed and there will be no repetition of past mistakes. These apologies may have manipulative undertones, you think, but yeah, I know all we want from these kind of people is an apology. That's all you want. Like, you are going through this horrible relationship and you want them to admit what they're doing, say it out loud and apologize. And so they keep that in their back pocket. You go to leave, they pull it out, and it's something you've wanted to hear. Boom. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Oh, it has a little bit of advice here. It's pretty good. It says, try to give them a piece of your mind. If they get defensive, know their apologies aren't sincere. So if they are saying, look, I did this wrong and I did that, and I'm so sorry, the test to see if it is a form of manipulation and they're not actually sorry is to go, yeah, well, blah, 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 like you hurt me and this and that. And then that, if they get, oh, well, you blah, 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 that just, there you go. They're lying. It's, I mean, if somebody's going to apologize at the 11th hour, threatening to harm themselves is next. They want you to give them attention. Yes, that is pretty much the crux of narcissists. They may threaten to hurt themselves to force you to respond to them. If you do not answer their calls and texts, they may suggest something dramatically extreme if you think they are at risk and are risking the lives of others or themselves. Contact emergency services. This is a classic one. And I think I saw a DV counsellor at one stage while I was dealing with that criminal in my life. And they were like, have they tried to threaten to commit suicide to try and get you back? Because I was saying, oh, they're trying to get me back and all this stuff and all the things they do. And I'm like, no, they haven't tried that one. They haven't done that one. And they're like, they will. And I'm like, how can you be so sure, kind of thing? Like, and yeah, eventually they did. They always have these things in their little back pockets. They've got like one of those tradie belts with all these little tools, and they're all like, that didn't work. Try this, try that. And that's literally how they think. It is everything they do is a means to an end. They're not like you or I where we respond just to things like with emotion or whatever. Every single thing they do is calculated and it is not out of any feelings. It is just, if I do X, I get Y. If I do Z, I get A. Yes, I went to the end of the alphabet and to the start. Anyway. So as a mental health professional, I really want to stress it is not your responsibility if somebody threatens to kill themselves because they're trying to get something out of you or you to do something. It is up to you to, you can offer to call 000, you can tell them to call 000 and then tell them you're cutting the conversation off. Separate yourself. It is okay to leave someone who is suicidal. It is okay to leave someone and ended a relationship if someone says that they do actually hurt themselves. It's okay. It is not your responsibility. You are not, in fact, it is actually a red flag when you should go away. I know a lot of us, and I used to be thinking it's not good to leave someone who is like that. But I'm telling you, if this person has been abusive towards you, it is a form of manipulation. If they do self-harm or something, that's still them trying to manipulate you. So there are usually people who are actually going to end their life will not tell anyone, let alone brag about it, let alone use it to manipulate others. However, some who fake doing suicide and do some kind of self-harm thinking, oh, I won't get too injured, but I'll get injured enough to go to hospital and that will get their attention. That kind of thinking, sometimes they can lose their lives without intending to. Like they'll do something where they will think, oh, I'll just step in front of this car and I might get like injured or whatever, but they actually get serious head injuries and pass away at the scene. And they were actually doing that, intending to, get a reaction and response from those around them and those they knew rather than actually choosing in that moment to end their life. So we call that, not misdemeanor, there's a word for it. We call it when they didn't intend to end their life, but they did the thing intentionally that ended their life, knowing the risks. Yeah, I forget the word. And it's really doing my head in. You know when you forget a word? And I'm not going to edit this out because you get what you pay for. $0 fun. Okay, so Moving right along. So yeah, if someone is suicidal, it is not your responsibility. In fact, what you can do if you want to do something is call in Australia, 000, in America, 911, wherever you are, call emergency services. Let me tell you, if you call emergency services and because that's what you're meant to do with suicide, anyone who's expressed suicidal ideation, they are brought into our hospital when they have done so. So the right form of care for an actual suicidal person is calling emergency services, and they will bring them via ambulance into the hospital. Sometimes police bring people, and they'll get assessed at the hospital, and then they'll decide if they admit them or not after a very thorough assessment. So if they are saying that and there are text messages, you can call emergency services, say, look, I've got these text messages. This is a person I was in an abusive relationship with. I'm trying to leave them. They're saying this. I'm thinking it's fake, but I just want to ring you and let you know, and you can do whatever you want with it. I'll read you the text. And then that way they might show up to their house. They'll be like, no, I'm fine. What are you talking about? And they'll say, look, she's read us the text. And they'll go, no, she's lying. She's a compulsive liar. She's mentally ill. She's not well. You know what they're going to say. But the good part about that is they might have words with them about faking it or using it as a form of manipulation, especially if they turn up and say, no, I'm fine, and deny everything. And you are not a frequent caller and you've randomly called. You don't call emergency services much, and you've expressed genuine concern and read them the text, and you have the text if they want to see them. They will not be happy. So they will probably just have words with them. So that might give them a wake-up call. Also, it might make them angry. But if you're not near them and you're safe, that's okay. If you are near them, you can even offer to call emergency services, because that usually calls them out and it actually reveals that they actually are not suicidal in that moment and desperately seeking help, because people who are telling you that they're suicidal because they want help, and they actually genuinely are having those thoughts. And if they've come to a point of telling you, they will accept the care. Yeah, and it is a big head game, but at the end of the day, you have a right to cut them off. You have a right to say, I'm sorry, please call 000 or 911 or whatever your local emergency, please call emergency services. And I am going to end this conversation here, because that is disgusting the way they use that. And then it's not on you. Then you say, no, I'm cutting it off. And even if you plan to speak with them in the future, you've got to, sort out who has what. Just say, I'm not going to talk to you further tonight because you're doing this, but, please call emergency services. Or if you want me to do that for you, I can. And they will likely decline and change the subject and try twisting it. But yeah, that was a very important note, that it's not your responsibility. You don't have a duty of care. Obviously, don't egg them on. That popular case, I don't know if you've heard of it, where I think it was a girl, randomly, there was someone who, a guy was saying he was suicidal. They weren't in a relationship, though, I don't think. Sorry if I haven't got the facts of this straight, but there was someone on the phone egging them on, like, do it, do it. And they're like, no, I don't want to do it. And they're like, do it. Oh, you're being weak. Just do it, and actually push this person to complete suicide. Now, don't do that. Cover yourself legally. Don't do that. And ethically and morally. So we're not going to encourage that as much as our abusers are terrifying, horrible monsters, and we'd like them to just not be in our lives anymore. As much as them ceasing to exist would keep us safe and make us feel so safe and amazing, we will not encourage that. However, it is not your responsibility. If they tell you, you can offer them those two options, and then it's up to them. They are an adult, and if they don't suffer with a history of something like that. Anyway, I'm not going to keep going on about it. Just, I really don't want you to feel guilt and get sucked in by that, because that hoovering technique, it's a nasty one. And yes, mine did try that, but he tried it like at the 11th hour, like deep into things. And he had been so violent, had so many injuries by that point. Like, it was ridiculous. And he tried to word it, because everything he worded was if he's in front of a courtroom. He was always trying to just make me look bad. And so he tried to word it in a very elusive way, but it was pretty obvious. And I responded with, would you like me to call emergency services for you? Would you like me to? I am happy to do that. Or would you like to call them? Oh, no. And then flips it and then starts going on about how I'm not good and I'm abusive and I'm horrible and, thinks he's re-engaged in the conversation again. So I knew it was fake. It was very, very fake. But you still, like at that time, you still think, oh, don't do it because you're blaming me and I'll get in trouble. You will not get in trouble if someone chooses to end their life. You, as long as you have, like that's why I think if it's a text or something, you text back, would you like me to call emergency services for you? I'm willing to do that. Just send yes and I'll call them for you. Or could you please call them yourself? Let me know. And then, like, if they complete, like, you've done, like, you're covered. And even if you ignored them completely, you're covered. It's their decision. So please don't get sucked into that one because it is one that is commonly used and it works on a lot of people because we feel like, well, where do I stand legally if I don't reply to them now? Like, you might not have been replying to them for a long time and then they pull that and you just think, if I keep ignoring them, like, and they do it, am I in trouble? No, you're not in trouble. Not morally or ethically either, because this person, like, it's not your responsibility. Don't push them into it. That's all my advice is. Do not push them to do it. But it is not on you. That it's absolutely disgusting they use that technique. Anyway, got to keep talking about how next is using others to get to you. And it's not in the way I thought. I was thinking triangulation. It says if they'll get other people to reach out to you on their behalf, and that's when they'll play the victim and get sympathy from friends and family. They might tell your parents how much they miss you and your friends how much they regret letting you go, all that kind of stuff, using others. And so that's not triangulation. I thought that's what it was going to get onto, but no, just telling everyone around you, oh, playing the victim, like, oh, I really miss her, And, people are romantics. We've seen a lot of romance movies. We're like, oh, yeah, oh, we should tell her, because a lot of us don't go around telling everyone that guy was abusive. So they fall for it. A lot of friends and relatives, even if they know they're abusive, fall for it. Not getting into that, if you know what I mean. Anyway, the article goes on to say if somebody who's been treating you abusively starts to treat you well, there's your sign. Something's not really good. It says, do not change any of your boundaries or allow them to be broken during a hoover. Don't relax or give up on any consequences of previous poor decisions for the abuser. Like if you've said, if you do this one more time, I'm going to do this. And then you do it. And then they're like, oh no. And you think, oh, I'll undo that. Like, you stick to your words, stick to your guns. Because a healthy, normal, loving person is going to treat you well. Like they're not going to play these games. So they're going to respond. Like if you say to someone says to you, if you do that one more time, like this is going to happen. Like you're not just going to blatantly ignore it and think I can suck my way out of that. Like, so treat them the way you think people would treat you in that situation. Don't stop any healthy activities or relationships you may be engaged in elsewhere. Like if you have a new relationship or with your friends, don't start isolating from friends or not going to things. It interestingly then says, don't use a hoover to bargain for a better life. You are setting up the abuser to break a promise and setting yourself up for disappointment. So I think, when you have that bargaining tool of them pretending to beg you back, even though they're going to start abusing you again anyway, what they're saying is don't say, oh, well, get them to do this and that as well, these extra sort of things around the house or something. Like don't try and get extra stuff because no matter what you ask for, they're definitely lying to you and they're not going to give it to you. They're going to let you down, as abusers do. And that's all it kind of says in that one. So that was really kind of interesting. So that's it in a nutshell, hoovering. It's a very quick episode. Finally, an actual quick episode. When I say quick episode, it's like not 50 minutes. And hoovering, trying to suck you back in using every technique in the book. They will use, like, I haven't even listed the things I thought that article did, but for some reason it didn't. I thought it went into like more specificities, but honestly, they know you. Your abuser knows you and they know what will work on you. So I could sit here listing all these different things, but it's what works on you. What happened to me was all of those things that sort of mentioned in that article, the apologies, the admitting things in text, because I said, oh yeah, well, you always say sorry, you always admit it's all your fault, but you won't type it because you'll never type things because you don't want people to see it. And, he was in that whole begging kind of mind frame, and he did type, I do bad things, I do. And he kind of alluded that he was violent. I think he did say once, oh, I've been violent. But I think he just was planning that if anyone saw it, he was going to say it was under duress because she's so scary and terrifying and mentally ill. I have to do these things. Or, because he broke into, grabbed my phone by force and sent himself threatening messages that I've explained once before. If he's doing that to me, he might just twist it and say, oh, yeah, she grabbed my phone and sent it to herself. I never, you just, things they actually are doing to you, they just lie that you did to them. So there's always an excuse or an answer for everything. So they will apologize. I've actually mentioned before how he went to the psychiatrist saying, I'm going to get well. He'd go to doctors saying it was a medical episode thing. Lots of things. And none of them eventuated in any improvement, any change. It was all lies and bullshit. Yes, he went to a psychiatrist, but as I've explained previously, he then came back to saying he was telling the psychiatrist that I was diagnosing him as a nurse and I shouldn't do that. And I'm like, why would you make something like that up? Okay. So he's trying to use it to abuse me with, and then came back with Dex amphetamines. So, and maybe having ADHD, but he was very unclear on it. So I think he went there just going, oh, do I have ADHD? And I don't think he mentioned me or my existence at all. I think that was a big whole act. And I think he went there because he had relatives on the spectrum and he wanted to know anyway. And so I just think he used it as a cover, like, oh, I'll say I'm going there, because of my violence. But he didn't, I believe he didn't even mention me at all. And it was all just a lie, that it was to fix him and make him a better person. I don't know if I think I might have said it before, but I don't know, about how when he went to prison, he did what he always did when he got arrested. So his first thing he would do when he got arrested was self-harm. Like he would hurt himself with the handcuffs, scratch his face, say, oh, she hurt me, she injured me, look what she did to me. And then the next thing he would do was say, oh, I'm going to kill myself. And so apparently he did that when he found out he was going to prison, and tried to get out of going to prison and assumed he'd be sent to a cushy hospital and treated with 5-star care that us nurses treat our patients with, but it didn't work. That doesn't happen. And apparently the prison guards know that people, and they're quite used to, the justice system is very used to people who, when they get caught, using suicidal ideation to try and get out of what they're charged with, to try and get out of going to prison because they're scared. And they can so they get them assessed. They have to tick boxes. They have to make sure they are safe. And they try and isolate them in specific areas to keep them safe. But they still go to prison. They're still in prison. So it didn't work. He had to go to prison. And he tried to pull that one. And then when he got sentenced for his crimes, when there's so much evidence, like CCTV with audio, and so much evidence, when you're painted into a corner and you're a narcissist, but you're still, a narcissist, he had to use the last thing in a narcissist's pocket was, oh yeah, I'm not well. Because they have to be the victim. So he said, oh, something's not right with me, I'm not well. So he was a victim of being mentally ill then. So absolutely no responsibility or accountability taken. And, the judges there go, make sure you get better, or you go and see a psychologist or something. And he's like, yeah, I know. Oh, I'm so, unwell, and playing the victim. But obviously he didn't want to go down that path. He wanted to blame me and twist it to be me. But once, they're painted into that corner with all the evidence, they reluctantly pull the victim a mental illness thing out of their back pocket, and they love it because they've always got that in their back pocket. And I believe this person's family lapped it up with, yes, we'll care for him, we'll look after him, what a victim. He does violent things to women and children. He can't help it. Actually, I don't think they know about the children part. There's a lot of secrets of this monster that they don't know about, but they choose to not believe a lot of things. So good on you. What I was going to do here was just end it. And I was going to end it on a note saying, have your boundaries, keep your boundaries, don't let them suck you in with this hoovering. But at the end, it was like, wait a minute, I've been hoovered. I've been a piece of dust in a Hoover dust bag sitting in the bottom of an old vacuum. And I've been hoovered. And then I thought, wait, I haven't even told you like all the other ways. But I think I have like 3 different episodes. Like, he's used the psychiatrist. We talked about that. What else we talked about? Oh, when my belongings were in his home and he refused to allow anyone else to come to help me pack, and the police would only do it for 20 minutes, and it was like days and days of packing and sorting and everything because he had intentionally mixed all my things into different areas. So using something that they have of yours, they will use that to get you in the premises. And I thought, I'm at risk here. I knew I was at risk, but it was worth it to get my stuff back. And I also had people around me who knew I had been abused, who'd seen the bruises, but had talked to him and been manipulated. And they were like, he's so handy, he's such a nice guy. Why don't you go back? Like literally they had seen me covered in bruises. So, because these manipulators are that good, they can reverse. You could see them murder someone in front of you and then they could just come up and gaslight you. They are so good at manipulation. Do not doubt how manipulative these people are, especially if they're manipulating people around you to not like you or something. They've manipulated you to love them and you're smart. So do not doubt how good they are at this manipulation thing and take the blame off yourself. And it's hard when they manipulate others around you to not like resent those people, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, using that whole there's something they have to get you to spend time with them that allows them more time to manipulate you. That one worked once early in the piece. I mean, I had trauma bond the whole time, so that doesn't help. It's not a good recipe for them hoovering you back. Other things, threats against me, threats against my kids, threats against my job, threats against everything. So yeah, there's threats, there's apologies, admissions of guilt, there's gifts, not too many, but the gifts did come at some times, but they're never really financially well off. Well, the ones I know, I'm sure there are some that are rich. I mean, probably out there. I just don't know them. But anything and everything. Basically, hoovering. They use whatever they can think of as a means to an end to get what they want, and they want power and control over you. They don't romantically miss you and want you back. And that's a problem with movies that we've all watched and seen the man winning the woman back. And I used to think that when I was younger. I thought, oh, it's so romantic when they do these grand gestures. And anyone witnessing some of these grand gestures in public will support him and be like, wow, why is she being so cold, not knowing the abuse? So you've got to remind yourself, if everyone who looked at both of you could see through some truth lens to see what he's done behind closed doors and knew the truth of absolutely everything, what would they think? If they had seen a visual of him abusing you, that they're not going to think, oh, what an amazing man. It's really frustrating when people only see certain parts and they put on a show. There are so many ways in which they try and hoover. So anyone out there in that situation, you're not alone. We've all been there. And at least when it's not real and they don't actually care and love you, which is really hard to sort of process at first with trauma bond, but eventually you get there. Yeah, it kind of sucks. So I'm going to go now. Thank you for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I really hope you stay safe, stay well, and chat next time. Have a great week. Bye. Love ya.